A scene is laid before the palace of Creon, once that of Oedipus at Thebes. The city has been besieged by an Argive army, the allies of the exile Polynices, whom his brother Eteocles had driven out of Thebes, that he himself might be sole king. But on the day before that, with which the play begins, the two brothers had slain each other in a single fight. Besides Polynices, 6 other leaders of the besiegers had been killed by as many Theban chiefs. Thus deprived of its commanders, the besieging host had fled, panic-stricken, into the night. It is the moment of dawn. Antigone has asked her sister Ismene to come forth with her from the house, in order that they may converse alone. Creon, their uncle, is now king. He has put forth an edict that Eteocles, the champion of Antigone, shall be honorably buried, but the body of Polynices, the country's foe, shall be left on the plain outside the walls of Thebes for dogs and birds to mangle at their will. Antigone tells her sister that she is resolved to defy this edict and to bury her brother Polynices. The Theban elders describe the danger from which Thebes have been saved. Creon comes forth, declaring his resolve that patriotism, treason shall never miss their due rewards, that Eteocles shall be honored and Polynices dishonored. The elders receive the decision with unquestioning respect, though their words are more suggestive of acquiescence than of approval. A guard arrives with the startling news that unknown hands have already paid burial rites to Polynices by the symbolical act of sprinkling dust on the corpse. Creon dismisses the man with threats of a terrible death, which the other guards shall share if they fail to discover the men who have thus broken the edict. Anapaests, spoken by the leader of the chorus, express sudden amazement and pain. Antigone, the royal maiden, the niece of the king, is led in, a prisoner, in the hands of the guard. Questioned by Creon, Antigone replies that she knew the edict, but nevertheless paid funeral rites to her brother because she held that no human law could supersede the higher law of the gods. She is ready to die. Creon, still more incensed by her demeanor, vows that she shall indeed perish by a shameful death. He suspects Ismene also, and she is presently brought in, agonized by grief for her sister's impending doom. Ismene entreats that she may be considered as sharing the responsibility of the deed. She wishes to die with her sister. Antigone firmly and even sternly, though not bitterly, rejects this claim, which justice will not allow. The deed has been hers only. He orders that both sisters shall be taken into the house and closely guarded, for his present purpose is that both shall die. The chorus speaks of the destiny which has pursued the royal line of Thebes. When a house hath once been shaken from heaven, there the curse fails nevermore. The sisters were the last hope of the race, and now they too must perish. Haman enters. He has come to plead with his father for the life of his betrothed, Antigone. The Haman of Sophocles maintains an entire calm and self-control. So long as a ray of hope remains, his pleading is faultless in tone and intact. He knows Creon, and he does not intercede with him as a lover for his betrothed. It is when Creon is found to be inexorable that the pent-up fire at last flashes out. Haman, having quitted the scene, Creon announces, in reply to a question of the chorus, the mode of death which he designs for Antigone. As for Ismene, he will spare her. Her entire innocence has been proved to his calmer thoughts by the words which passed between the sisters in his presence. Antigone is to be immured in a sepulchral chamber, one of the rock tombs in the low hills that fringe the plain of Thebes. And there she is to be left, with only the formal dole of food which religion prescribes, in order to avert the pollution which the state would otherwise incur through the infliction of death by starvation. She is now brought out of the house by Creon's servants, who conduct her to her living tomb. At the sight, the Theban elders cry that pity constrains them, even as love constrained Haman to deplore the sentence. Antigone speaks to them of her fate, and they answer not unkindly, yet they say plainly that the blame for her doom rests with herself alone. The king could not grant impunity to a breach of his edict. Creon enters and reproves the guard for their delay. In her latest words, Antigone expresses her confidence in the love which awaits her beyond the grave, and also the trouble which overclouds her trust in the gods, who knew her deed and yet have permitted her to suffer this doom. Then she is led forth and is seen no more. The blind and aged prophet, Tiresias, is led in by a boy. He comes with an urgent warning for the king. The gods are wroth with Thebes. They will no longer give their prophet any sign by the voice of birds or through the omens of sacrifice. The king is himself the cause. By his edict, Carian creatures have defiled the altars of Thebes with the taint of the unburied dead. Let burial rites be at once paid to Polynices. He speaks for Creon's own good, for Antigone's act did not clear Creon. Creon's duty to the dead and to the gods below was still unperformed. So far as Creon was concerned, Polynices was still unburied. There was nothing to hinder Creon from performing such rites. These were still claimed from him. After Antigone's tribute had been rendered, birds and dogs had been busy with the corpse. Creon's duty to the dead and to the gods below was now also a duty toward the polluted state from which his impiety had alienated the gods above. In reply to the friendly and earnest warning of Tiresias, Creon angrily accuses the seer of mercenary complicity in a disloyal plot. Malcontent Thebans wish to gain a triumph over their king by frightening him into a surrender. Never will he grant burial rites to Polynices. Tiresias, angered in his turn, then declares the penalty which the gods reserve for such obduracy. With the life of his own son shall Creon atone for his twofold sin: the detention of the dead among the living, and the imprisonment of the living in the abode of the dead. The seer then departs. Creon is deeply moved. In the course of long and eventful years, he has learned a lesson which is present also to the minds of the Theban elders. The word of Tiresias has never failed to come true. Creon will yield. He immediately starts with his servants for the upper part of the Theban plain, where the body of Polynices is still lying, not very far from the place of Antigone's prison. The catastrophe is approaching. A messenger now enters, one of the servants who had accompanied Creon to the plain. The words in which he briefly intimates the nature of his tidings are overheard within the house by Eurydice. Then, in the act of going forth with offerings to Pallas, and she wounds. On recovering consciousness, she comes forth and hears the full account from the messenger. He says that when they reached the plain, Creon's first care was for the funeral rites due to Polynices. After prayer to Pluto and Hecate, the remains, lacerated by birds and dogs, were washed and solemnly burned. A high funeral mound was then raised on the spot. Creon and his followers had then repaired to the tomb of Antigone. They found her already dead. She had used her veil to hang herself. Haemon, in a frenzied state, was embracing her corpse. He drew his sword upon his father, who fled. Then, in a swift agony of remorse, the son slew himself. Having heard this news, Eurydice silently retires into the house. Hardly withdrawn when Creon enters with attendants, carrying Haemon's shrouded corpse upon a bier. Amid his laments, a messenger from the house announces that Eurydice has stabbed herself at the household altar, with imprecations on the husband. Wholly desolate and wretched, Creon prays for death. Nor has the chorus any gentler comfort for him than the stern precept of resignation. Pray thou no more. Mortals have no escape from destined woe. As he is conducted into the house, the closing words of the drama are spoken by the leader of the chorus. Wisdom is the supreme part of happiness, and reverence towards the gods must be inviolate. Great words of prideful men are ever punished with great blows, and in old age teach the chastened to be wise.